channel. This is Tita Lavinia of Tita's of Pageantry, and for this episode, I am going to give in to your requests. I will be listing down my top 10 favorite national costumes. I will also list down the ones in between and those that unfortunately go into my worst national costume. So please stick around. Please subscribe to the channel as well as hit that bell notification button for your weekly pageant fix. So since a lot of you are waiting for my list, I will start with Miss Belarus. Now, Miss Belarus, her costume was something that was visually striking. I really liked the scale of the costume because it was exaggerated. It was bigger than the usual. I'm not so sure what the story is behind the costume, but when I checked the organization and the page, I saw that they were able to photograph this costume against a backdrop that was very agricultural in nature. So I think this has something to do with the harvest culture of Belarus. Next, I would love to also talk about Bolivia this time. No one really gets to talk about Bolivia. I don't think that this costume is something that would resonate to a lot of the vloggers out there, but I did get to really look into the make of Miss Bolivia's costume. Now, I also checked the designer's page, and it seemed that the costume is really very intricate. So if you look at the fabric and the way the beading was done, I'm sure that there are meaning to the beading. In fact, her costume had like a huge flamingo embroidered in front, but I liked the details that was really put into it. It's really sparkly. It's very typical of a Bolivian costume, but made in such a way that would fit a Miss Grand stage. Next on my list is the beautiful representative from Czech Republic. Now, I do know that they made some changes with her hair. In fact, she looked very Elsa with her overall appearance, and she was strikingly tall. Her costume apparently was a nod to the porcelain or the porcelain industry of Czech Republic. So it was blue and white. This is something that was very common. I think in Europe, a lot of these countries go into porcelain making. So I'm just not so sure how huge the industry is in Czech Republic, but she looked fantastic. For me, it seemed like a cosplay costume, but it's something that really works because it did not forget the sexy factor. Now, I think a lot of these ladies forgot that they were competing at Miss Grand International, so they forgot to inject a little bit of the sexy in there. But I think her look was one of the more successful ones because I like that she also looked like a collectible. I mean, is that even a politically correct word to even say these days? But she did look like some fabulous collectible item in that blue and white ensemble. I think this one is in the running for the best costume. Of course, I am talking about Miss Guatemala. Now, I really like her costume because it's really striking. The colors are so vibrant. They patterned the colors from a really famous landmark in Guatemala. It's called San Andres. It's a church that has like this really vibrant yellow paint to it with so many details that they were able to translate into a costume. Now, what I like about her costume was, apart from presenting it really well to us, is that it really did not deviate from the photos that we've seen, from the videos that we've seen, because I think this is a problem when you have photos that are released out there that are so beautiful, that are edited to perfection. Sometimes they don't translate to real life. So, but what I saw on the Miss Grand stage was that the way it was presented in photos and videos is also the same way that it was presented on stage. So they were able to maintain that impact level in terms of presenting this costume to us. This is something that sparks joy. It was a really happy looking costume. Apart from the fact that they did not scrimp on the materials, they also did not scrimp on scale. They knew that it had to be grand. They knew that it had to be visually impactful. Next on my list is someone who did not forget that she was competing at Miss Grand International, and I'm talking about Miss Mexico. Now, she had a really sexy costume on, but it was so well made. I really like that it was bedazzled, it was blingy. It reminded me of the way Judith Lieber, the bag maker, does her, small minaudiers. And I really like how the technique that was used by using flat back beading is very similar to the technique that, Alfredo Barraza likes doing over and over again. So it was bejeweled, it was dazzling. I like her presentation as well, because my issue with Miss Mexico is that however pretty she is, however sexy she is, however strong of a candidate she is, she doesn't seem to really be as charismatic as I imagined her to be. So for her to engage with the audience with her dance movements, I thought that it was a really good move for Mexico to do that. A lot of feathery costumes, obviously, because this is really part of the presentation that we see every year, a nod to the flora and fauna of each of the countries. But I think Miss Panama's costume is also one of the most successful in terms of a bird-like costume. Now, she had, of course, the glorious feathers, but what I liked about her feather choices this time is that the colors are a little bit more understated. I'm used to seeing the vibrant feathery costumes in like emerald greens and vibrant yellows, but this time around, she did a little bit of a pastel color, very similar to my wall. So she had a little bit of that sorbet colored feathery things. But what was really striking for me about this costume was how well made it was. It wasn't haphazardly done. It seemed like that they put enough time and effort in putting together her costume, because you could really see that the make is something that could really pass quality control. So yeah, I really appreciate the work that was put into Miss Panama's costume this time. Of course, this list wouldn't be complete without Miss Thailand. Now, I really like Miss Thailand's costume because I feel like this is a perfect fit to her personality. So what she presented is her version of the Bangkok floating market. But it was also bejeweled just like Miss Bolivia's. So this is something that is presented at a maximum level, because they could have just used, regular items, regular fabrics. But yeah, they bejeweled everything. So this is very typical of the way Thailand presents their candidates or their representatives. And what made this presentation cohesive is, of course, the way that Miss Thailand is. Her personality really shone through. So it was really good for her to present the costume with the movements that she's known for. She is a little quirky, but it was really nice because it was blingy enough. It was for a stage performance. So I think that they did really well in making the costume fresh, knowing that all of the photos have been there, all this time. I am also going to give Miss Spain a spot in my best costume list, because I think that what she presented is typical of a Miss Spain representative. She had a very obvious flamenco-inspired costume with all the roses, with all the red, with all the gold. So this is something that we expect a Miss Spain candidate would wear. I like her movements. She didn't really have to perform a flamenco dance for you to understand that she is referring to flamenco and that culture. So I like the costume because it wasn't subtle, but at the same time, it wasn't also over the top. It was somewhat in the middle, but I like that it was very elegant compared to the other theatrical costumes that surrounded her during the competition. My favorite costumes this edition is, of course, that of Miss Vietnam. Now, I did read somewhere that the Vietnamese costume is made with golden branches, with gold materials, also with mirrors to make it more reflective. And it was a really good move. Now, I'm just not so sure what the inspiration is. I think it has something to do with maybe a mythical story in Vietnam. But I like that they were able to present that in such a way that did not deviate from the photos that they released. released. In short, hindi siya budol, guys. And this is something that I appreciate because sometimes when you do or when you release these beautiful photos, the expectation gets to be a little higher and you don't want that expectation to deflate and you don't want to be underwhelmed. And what I liked about how she presented her costume was that I was not underwhelmed. I really appreciate how the light caught elements of her costume, that she looked really sparkly on stage. I like the fringe. I also like the tree type headdress that she had on, and the way she presented it. Of course, this list wouldn't be complete without the beautiful Samanatha Bernardo of the Philippines. Now, let me tell you more about this costume and why I think this is very successful on the part of her team. Now, we have had bird-like costumes in the past. In fact, Gazzini won Best Costume at Miss Universe in 2019, and then in 2017, we had our first taste of a bird-like costume in Rachel Peters' Golden Sari Manok made by Val Taguba. Now, the thing is that with Gazzini, there was a little bit of a mechanism problem. With Rachel, there was a little bit of the balance issue. So we were a little afraid of what a bird-like costume would do for a Samanatha Bernardo because she had a really successful bird-like costume during the Binibining Pilipinas presentation in 2019, also by Patrick Isorena. So I had no idea what her costume was going to be for Miss Grand International, even if I have like a constant communication with the stylist. I never asked what her costume would be like. So I was in the dark the same way as you guys were in the dark. So it was a really refreshing sight to see Samantha in that super grand golden Aguila costume. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the costume. Now, according to the release, it says that it was inspired, of course, by our national bird. And what they want to achieve is to also bring attention and awareness to the habitat loss of this magnificent bird. Now, of course, gold is a color that they pick because it's also a way to pay homage to the golden crown of Miss Grand International. So everything came together. Now, let's talk about Samanatha Bernardo and how she exactly looked. Now, a lot of people are craving for a very Victoria's Secret type of presentation, and I think Samantha was able to achieve this from her hair, her makeup, her golden panty, and then her golden bra, as well as the golden wing. So everything was just really VS. And girls, if you are competing at Miss Grand International, this is exactly how you should pattern your looks. It should be a little different from the way we present our girls at the other international pageants, because this one gives you a little bit of a showgirl feel. So I think the team was really smart in giving us a little bit of that showgirl type of presentation. I will, however, note that because the execution and because the mechanism worked flawlessly, I think that it took away a little bit from Samantha's performance. Now, I say this only because I really expected Samantha to showcase more of her athleticism as well as her dancer background at the presentation. I really thought that she would do a little bit of a dance, which she didn't because she was restrained by the mechanism of the wing. So if it were just up to me, I would have let go of the mechanism and I would just have focused on the actual dance moves, because it would have been the perfect time for Samantha to really cement her skill as a professional dancer, as an athlete, as a rhythmic gymnast. But this is just me nitpicking a little bit, but everything else from the make, guys, that costume did not appear like it was made in 20 days. So can you imagine what this team could be capable of had they been given a longer period to prepare? Because this costume is new. She wasn't even going to even wear this at Binibining Pilipinas. She already had an existing costume at Binibining Pilipinas. So for the guys to come up with a costume that is entirely new, that is well made, I I heard that it was 25 kilos. That's why there were a lot of rumors that she passed out, that she did not feel well. But let me just tell you as early as now that she did not pass out, but it is true that she got so tired because yes, that costume was so heavy. It was 25 kilos. So right after the competition, she disappeared for a bit. She went up, she changed her dress. And I do know that not even Samantha, but also Miss Indonesia was also super tired that day. So if you felt that her energy went down, it wasn't because she passed out, it wasn't because she was rushed to the hospital or rushed into treatment. It's just that she had to have a little bit of time for herself to gather her strength and to make an appearance, because as we all know, right after these events, they would have to also meet with some members of the press and some of the fans. So yeah, she did change. But did I think that costume was successful? Of course it was successful. It gave us everything that we expected for Miss Grand International. I have four names that I couldn't classify because they're not exactly the best, they're not exactly the worst. So I'm gonna start with Miss Dominican Republic. Now, Miss Dominican Republic, I really like her name. Her name is Lady Leon. I'm not so sold on her national costume. I think that this is something that I've seen before, but she is on my list because I really like her performance. I really like the way her body was highlighted in that presentation. The camera angle really captured her beautiful long legs. They were powerful. So yeah, she is on my list. Next on this, I don't know where to put this girl list, is Miss Laos. Now, she had a really beautiful costume. In fact, this was made by a Thai designer. It was the fighting fish costume. Unfortunate for the girl because this was actually the costume that was released by Miss Universe Thailand for Amanda Obdam to wear. Now, I'm just not sure what happened there because she ended up wearing the costume even before Amanda got into Miss Universe. And what's even crazier is that the costume is actually made by the same designer. So I don't know if the designer has some beef with the organization. I don't know what he's playing at by allowing another girl to wear a costume that is supposed to be reserved for a Miss Universe representative. But please keep me in the loop of what this drama is all about kasi sino ang mag-a-adjust? Alangan naman si Amanda ang mag-adjust, diba? So it was unfortunate because it was a beautifully made costume, but in a way I also feel for Miss Laos because right after the presentation she was swarmed by reporters and members of the media that I think she was also on the verge of breaking down and crying. So I don't know, if I were an organizer, if I were part of the decision making, of this group, I wouldn't want to subject a candidate to such, for such a gimmicky type of move. So please keep me in the loop of what this actually is all about. I am also going to add in Miss USA to this list because although I feel that it is a little gimmicky for her to wear a gown that had references to Black Lives Matter, although it was gimmicky, I also understand that it is timely and relevant to what is happening in society right now. Last on my in-between list, I will give that to Japan. She had a really, really cute presentation. She did mention that it was a nod to the Kokeshi dolls and that a Filipino team was behind making the actual costume. They were able to present the costume. It was visually striking. It's something that we can talk about. It was really nice. It was really very playful. I liked the scale. I also like how cute it was. It was really kawaii on all levels. Now let's go to the dreaded worst national costume list. Now, it pains me to make this list, but yeah, we have to because it's not all rainbows and butterflies, as we all know. So the first on my list is Miss Brazil. Now, technically, Miss Brazil's costume was not bad. The make was really good. It was really well made. It's just that the costume itself did nothing to her figure. I would also be putting Cambodia on this list. Now, her costume itself is really good. I've seen some pictures. It was really nice photograph. I just did not understand her presentation. So first of all, she had a thing just like Catriona. It was like the dragon thing on wheels. I didn't understand why she left the prop in the middle of the stage and then she moved to do her presentation, but there was no fire in her eyes. She had like I don't know if it was a trident. I don't know if it was like a spear of sorts that she kept on pointing towards the audience, but there was no emotion there. I don't know. She just seemed like really pissed off and she wanted to go on with the presentation and then walk away. Moving on, I have Miss England. Now, you know, she had a really cute costume, Miss England, but looking at it, it seemed really very similar to the way Hannah Arnold was able to present her costume back in Binibining Pilipinas and Dea of Indonesia, how she presented her costume in 2017, because although she had like that London eye thing going on with like maybe a structure of London at the hem of her skirt that, you know, she dragged across the stage. The make is a little amateurish for me. I feel like this is more of a DIY school project. Include in my list Miss Scotland. Now, I know there is a lot of love for Miss Scotland and I don't want to misplace this love just because she's going through something, just because she has a medical condition. Now, what she presented was like a combination of a unicorn and a mermaid. Now, I did not like the costume itself because I did not feel like it added to the dignity of Miss Scotland. Now, if they wanted to elevate Miss Scotland and not just give her a pity party, then I suppose the organization should have made sure that she had a costume that would really be competitive, because the costume that I saw on Miss Scotland seemed like something that you can buy from like a souvenir store. Even the way that her headdress was made is just something that you could order online or maybe buy from Etsy. So I'm so sorry if this really seemed harsh, but I feel like Miss Scotland, being the way she is, if they really wanted to present Miss Scotland in the best way possible, then they should have made more of an effort to give her more of a dignity, give Scotland an identity by really presenting Scotland in her garment. On my worst costume list, unfortunately, is Miss Indonesia. Now, I'm gonna say this because Miss Indonesia's costume is actually one of my favorites. I've seen the costume before. In fact, this is one of the costumes that have already been out there, you know, for so long. And they released these photos, and admittedly, these photos would make you nervous because of the way that it is lit, because of the way that these photos were processed. So when I saw the costume on stage, I felt a little underwhelmed. The colors weren't as vibrant as how I saw them in the photo that were released by the organization. And what's even worse was the way it was presented. I think the mechanism did not work to their favor. So I think Aura had a little bit of a difficulty in manipulating the actual costume itself. So it didn't work properly for her. So if you see some of the photos, the costume itself like looked lopsided. Yeah, it really seemed like a flop for me, only because there was just so much hype that was created for that costume that I really expected a lot. So hopefully my list is the same as your list, but if you have other observations, please do let me know. Thank you so much, guys, and until next time, you're gonna see a lot of this face. So goodbye.